Joshua Smith here, and welcome to the GSD Mode Podcast. Now get shit done and smash that subscribe button now. What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD Mode Podcast interview. Every single week, I interview top real estate professionals, top entrepreneurs, and strip top badasses that are out there dominating their space. And today, you guys, got another amazing rock star guest here on the GSD Mode Podcast. Our guest today, Michael Reese. Now, Michael is one of the top real estate agents and team leaders on the planet. He is an NAR 30 under 30 finalist. This is a dude that sold thousands of homes, is the co-author of The Miracle Morning for Real Estate Agents, also the co-founder of Attract ROI and NAEA, which is one of the top nationwide coaching platforms out there for real estate agents. And he breaks down his journey, man, how he created so much success, how he became one of the top real estate agents and team leaders on the planet, what he's done, again, what his journey's been that allowed him to create so much success, as well as what he continues to do to go out there and continue to stay on top of his game and just continue to blow it up. He drops so much knowledge in this interview. I know you're going to gain so much out of it. Now, real quick, before we jump in, if you haven't already, make sure that you snag my new book, Dominate Your Real Estate Business, Top Tips from a Top Producer, 100% free, nothing being sold. It'll be in your email box within seconds. It's 40 plus top tips, methods, and strategies that I've utilized and implemented in my business for the last 15 years that have allowed me to become one of the top team leaders and realtors on the planet. Again, 100% free, nothing being sold. You can go snag your copy right now at joshuasmithfreebook.com. Again, joshuasmithfreebook.com. All right, let's jump on into this epic podcast interview with Michael Reese. All right, Michael Reese, welcome to the GSD Mode Podcast, my friend.
Man, excited to be here, buddy.
Yeah, no, I've been looking forward for this to this for a long time, man. And you're somebody that I've watched from afar from a long time, and watching your success, dude, has just been awesome, man. I mean, you've been continuing to crush it at each level for a lot of years, dude. So I'm so excited for all of us to be able to learn from you and learn about your journey and how you've created all the success. And before we jump into all the amazing things that you're up to today, man, I'm always intrigued in our guest journeys that led them here in the first place. So rewind the clocks. Like, how did your entrepreneur and real estate journey begin in the first place?
Entrepreneur, really, I would say my mom and dad were rather strict. My mom was one of the highest ranked women in the United States military. And, I got a paper route at 11. So I just remember going to the mall one day and there being this motorcycle, and my dad and mom said, "You can have it if you could buy it." And I asked my mom if I could have a paper route. She said no, but I called the guy anyway. And my neighborhood wasn't available, but the one, Kingsbriar, which was it was probably 2 miles away, was. And so anyway, I ended up having him come to my house. I didn't tell my mom he was coming. He showed up, and then I just sold my mom. My first close was closing my mom on getting a paper route. And I ended up buying that motorcycle before my 14th birthday, because you could ride them when you were 14. And so I ended up just delivering newspapers. When I started, they had a morning paper and an afternoon paper. So I had to be out there at 5 a.m. and then I had to get out of school and I had to deliver the PM paper at like 4. And that was for about 6 months until they ditched and just went to one paper. And, I think for years of, having to get on my bike, ride 2 miles all the way to the other neighborhood, deliver the papers, come home, collect, and my dad moving to Tulsa. And so it being only my mom and her, having a huge obligation there. My mom was enlisted. So when I say highest strength, what I mean by that is she was an enlisted person. She wasn't an officer, but she was a command sergeant major. And so my point of sharing that is that she was very strict and by the book. And so there was that required me to become very innovative at whether I wanted someone to sleep over at the house, I had to sell, I had to clean, I had to rate, there was always like, if you do this, then we can do that. And I just got used to performing in order to, achieve something. And I think that was a benefit. My dad, on the other hand, I've shared this story, is he just always made me, I just remember him driving me to a house in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and saying it was that those individuals set goals. The house was humongous, but it was probably like someone who was in the oil business, but it was a humongous house. I just remember him kind of sharing some of his personal development stuff that he had learned through probably direct sales. And so my dad always made me think anything was possible. And my mom, made me always realize that I had to set a goal and a plan if I was going to get that motorcycle. And so I think a combination of thinking anything was possible and, just having that rinse and repeat of, knowing you can make things happen. I mean, I just remember the motorcycle. I was like, man, that'd be so cool. And it happened. And then from there, it was like, well, what else do I want to try to get,
Yeah. No,
That's the young age. That's the young version.
Yeah. No, it's such an awesome foundation, man, because you learn the structure, you learn the discipline, but also the goal setting component and having the power of the goals and the vision. And that's a crazy foundation, man. And did you, we're in the generation of, I know this is starting to change now, but it's kind of like, all right, you go to high school, then you go to college, you get a good job. Did you go down that path, or did you continue?
No, I didn't. It's weird that you asked. My wife said I should always share the story. I had some adversity. I got shot when I was 14. My parents got a divorce. I moved out. I ended up living with a neurologist, Dr. Ronald E. Woosley out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. He had several kids. His youngest son is in Arizona. He was just here yesterday. And so I ended up living with Dr. Woosley at a very young age, finished high school living with them. My mom got stationed in Korea. So I ended up mowing grass while I lived with them, and I sold suckers at school, made a lot of money until the school called and said I couldn't sell suckers anymore because I had kids selling them in the junior highs and I was giving them half of the money. And so I was making a couple $100 selling blow pops, and then I was mowing grass. I got my grass up to about, I probably at my peak was mowing 40 yards a day. Sold my lawn service, my lawn service was, I learned systems. And my lawn service, I ended up subscribing to a magazine called Lawn and Landscape. So I learned the ability to seek. I think that's important. So for me, I have a formula that was introduced, which is, you can't change anything in your life till you have awareness. So it's you have to have awareness, then it's seek, ask, receive, take action, persistent accountability. And those are just formulas. And once you have awareness, you're consciously aware of the problem. Now you can take action if you want to. You can seek, and seek is the one thing I like doing the most, which is looking for all the possible solutions to now what I'm aware of. I don't think I was aware that I had a process back then, but I did learn. The very first thing I ever Googled was a girl that went to UNT told me I was trying to grow my lawn service, and she said, go Google it. And I was like, what? She was like, Google it. I was like, what's Google? And she was like, we use this thing called Google at school. It was my best friend's girlfriend at the time. So I Googled it, and I found this thing called Lawn and Landscape, bought it. They sent me a magazine with a guy with like a UPS outfit on the front, and it said everything you could learn from UPS about growing your lawn service. And long story short, UPS schedules all their deliveries on right-hand turns through software so they don't have to stop at stoplights. And so in between each one of my lawns, there might be 3 or 4 stoplights, 3 or 4 minutes with 4 guys in a truck. Minutes determine profitability. Sometimes they're breaking even. And I got to learn, I used to think, man, I got all these accounts out in Highland Village, but I would drive an hour to Highland Village thinking I'm killing it and come back. And this Lawn Monkey software that I invested in would have me scan the yard. I had a little sheet. If I got a new yard, it would automatically put it into the route. And then it had a barcode in the scanner, and you scan it when you start and stop. And so you knew the profitability on that yard, and you knew your time between yards. And it helped with giving estimates, because you learned kind of and that was the key of my marketing. My first real marketing thing was in between that time I was working at a gym, and I learned how to grow a gym, and I learned how to grow a lawn service by putting things on the door. I learned that people would call. And that same girl that told me about Google, she was in school for marketing. She made me a flyer for both businesses. And, I kind of did the newspaper thing again. I put stuff on the door. I was used to going out when I did newspapers. So I went out and I put things on the door. And in between that time, I had waited tables. So I learned how to talk to strangers. When you wait tables and, you're just getting triple set, double set. And I worked at a breakfast place where the ladies that were working there were experts. They'd been there like 10 years. They didn't want to but there was big tips, and I could go out at night if I worked the breakfast. So I worked at a place called Owen's Family Restaurant, and you had to be fast, to work with these professionals. But I learned how to, I just learned a lot about people. And I think it was through the combination of those things, and especially working at Bally's and getting a little bit of, because at Bally's I would have to, I'd have to turn what were called known as lead boxes, where people would sign up for a free 2-week trial membership. I'd have to turn those into 36-month contracts, which I wasn't proud of doing, by the way. But it was that was probably the motivation of leaving there got me into real estate, because I didn't feel like I was, even though I felt like I was helping people a lot of the times, I felt like my skill of persuading people got to the point that I was persuading people to spend money that they didn't have. And that wasn't very fulfilling.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it, man. So then that led you into real estate. And you developed all these amazing skills, man. And a lot of people, though, when they jump into a new venture, they don't necessarily take those skills with them or reflect on, hey, how can I align these skills that I've learned to this new thing? They think they have to reinvent themselves. And I know that you're somebody that had success early on in your career and continued to blow it up and have success. Walk us through. I mean, that first couple of years in real estate is such a challenge for most. I mean, we all know the stats. What's 90% of agents drop out in the first 3 years. And, what did you do when you got into real estate to create that foundation, to stay in the game, number one, but then allowed you to become one of the top realtors on the planet?
Well, what I did, and this was by default, man, the truth is that I made the decision to go to the lake, and I saw Jay at the lake. I knew Jay from college. Jay sat behind me and music appreciation. And me not knowing, he disappeared one day, but later to find out his girlfriend got pregnant. So he dropped out of school. I didn't know that's what happened until we reconnected later. And when I reconnected with him, I saw this big boat. It was a Reggie Fountain special. It was the most beautiful boat, white with a dark blue and a very thin gold line. It was just a beautiful, classy boat. And I didn't see it. I heard it. He was playing I Love It When They Call Me Big Papa. And I looked over and I saw this boat. And my buddy that was with me said, man, that's Jay Kinder. I was like, Jay Kinder. I was like, oh, I know Jay. And I whistled, and he rode the boat over to where I was. And, that ended up into a conversation. He said he was in real estate. And I was in Dallas, which was, and he's in Lawton, my hometown, but that's about a 2-hour drive. Lake Texoma is a bi-state lake, which divides up both states. And so people from Oklahoma come there and people from Texas go up there. And I just said, hey, man, you mind if I come by your office? He said, yeah. When I went to his office is when I had the epitome, because he was going to one of his first big conferences. So like he was rushing to leave the next day. So I was trying to get as much as I could. And he had a stack of papers that were coming off of this website, and he was printing them out. And he had done like 230 transactions with no buyer agent, no listing agent. So like I'm running and gunning with him. Like we're going on listing appointments. I'm seeing him run at a very high level. And I just remember him not being able to call the leads. And to me at the gym business, man, my leads were people who were at the dry cleaners that wanted a free 2-week membership. He had people that had he was telling me, yeah, they try to sell their home, and when they don't sell them, you can call them and try to sell them. I was like, so you're telling me all I got to do is call someone who I know is going to probably list it? And he was like, yeah. And then there's these things called for sale by owners. They literally put a sign in the yard saying they're going to sell. I was like, oh my gosh, there's leads everywhere. To me, that was my mindset, because I would have to go into health clubs and I just knew I was not scared of prospecting. I had called out of the phone book. I was just maybe a little broken there. Maybe that I was just, I just leaped past. I'd never had that. I've never, ever not been willing to do the hard work. My mentality, which is what I've told Jay, and Jay will say I said this my whole life, is, if a guy can go to Afghanistan and get stationed away from his family and sleep in a tent, and be there for a year, I can surely cold call for 4 months, right? And I just feel like anything that I do at that level, if it works, I can hire someone else to do it. But I want to do it first just to understand it. So I've never, ever approached something as if that I was going to do that. I don't even think that way. I don't think like this is my job. I think of, well, if this works, then we're going to need to put a system around this to get someone to become the ISA, right? And what training would we need if we needed to hire 4 of them? And so I would do it with it was different. I would be like, this is seriously what I did. How many door hangers is humanly possible can you do if you cut through the yard versus not cut through the yard? How long could you? I had it all timed. And the reason I was doing that is because, I could tell if I had someone do my door hangers, I wouldn't tell them that I had done that same route because it was a MAPSCO. So I'd give them like G3, and I've done G3. So I know how long it should take, right? The cold calls, I know how many you should be able to make by noon because I had done that. And so because I knew, and I don't have it here, but I had a little thing that was a laminated. It's downstairs in my weight room, but it's a I found it but it was on everybody's desk, which was, people have revenue generating activities, which they should be responsible of. And in real estate, my first 30 days, I put 4 deals under contract as a result of Jay, because I was able to see the things that Jay did and I simply did them. So if I was giving advice to somebody, I would say that my core skill was seek the best to be the best. And I quote unquote, I took that from Jay, because the truth is it's a long story. We paid a guy to Jay Kinder's my business partner, for those of you who don't know. And one of the things that we did is we paid a guy named Bart Vickery, who was a long time ago. He flew in and he was trying to decode what made us successful. Jay's was seek the best to be the best, which was something I did too. Mine was more relationship driven at the end of the day, but seek the best to be the best means, you don't try to reinvent the wheel. You find the person that's already accomplished what you're trying to accomplish. And then the same Dan Kennedy says, if you want to charge a lot of people a lot of money, you better have paid a lot of people a lot of money, right? And so you have to go out there, find those people, and change that meaning from there is a way. If they can do it, you can do it. And if you're trying to reinvent everything, I just think it takes a lot longer. So I think I was successful because I found a guy who was selling a bunch of homes. So he was obviously doing the right things, had the right habits. And I had when I went to my first real estate office, which is, it was at Keller Williams in the Colony, my broker was a lady named Inga Brown, and Inga told me to go get a job. She said, well, if you waited tables, you can get she basically told me it could take me 6 months to sell my first home. I was like, no, that ain't going to happen. And on day 3, I got called into her office because there was a report that there was they didn't know my nationality. They just said he was tan and tall, and I'm like 6'2", and they said there was some, tan younger guy, 6'2", knocking on doors at 6:30 in the morning. And the only reason I did that is because a guy down the hall told me that he starts calling at 8. And I was like, shoot, man, if I can get in front of him, and so I started going down South Colony Boulevard, knocking on doors. I knocked on 5109 South Colony Boulevard. The guy's name was Ramo Campos, and he didn't speak English. His box was empty, and his son that was like 7 years old translated for me. And that's how I got my first listing. I held it open, and I went on the internet, Google, and I went to the grocery store. I bought cinnamon. I put it on tinfoil and put it in the oven and did like all these things, shit we would never do today. That was my first listing, and it sold in 9 days. And that was, I made more money on that deal than I had made, working a month, at the health club. And I was like, man, let's try to do this a few more times.
Yeah. That's so awesome, man. I mean, you had the mentorship, as you talked about the importance of that, but then also, man, you freaking grinded and busted your ass off. I mean, you were committed, you were willing to do what it took to make this work. And that's where I see so many going wrong. I mean, even if they have the right mentorship, it just not willing to put in that work like you were willing to put in, man. So that's awesome. Dude, I'm curious, dude, with at what point you started getting into kind of the digital marketing aspect, if you will. I remember having Ryan Stewman on the podcast a couple of years ago, and he mentioned that you guys were friends and you introduced him to online marketing, digital marketing, and it was life changer for him. And I know that's something that you're a badass at. Like, what point did you start seeking that element of your business?
I think the truth is I started it in real estate, and I did. The way that I do it now is different. This is an interesting question, but I first started on just getting a website for my real estate business, and I wanted to know the numbers. And I obsessed on knowing. I had lost money. I had done things that lost money, and so I wanted to know the numbers. And once I knew the numbers of landing page conversion and just some conversion numbers. And once I honed in on that, I realized that, man, this could really, really work. The truth is I made most of my money through direct mail. So I feel like direct mail is one of those things that I still think is probably an unfair thing for people who know how to do it. So I did a ton of direct mail. The reason I like direct mail is because, once you nail one, I mean, I sent the same postcard to every single home for 5 years, and my phone rang. I mean, I listed 368 homes in 12 months myself. And, I couldn't walk in my city with somebody not saying, there's Michael Reese, if I went to a restaurant or a grocery store. And that was a brand that I had built through a direct mail piece. Now, when I got into real digital marketing, the truth is that I went to the Gaylord. I'll tell you, I told this story this past weekend. Me and Jay went to the Gaylord, and the first thing I did was I bought a course from Ryan Dice, which was the $1 Million Napkin. This is how it all started. And about maybe 6 months before that, I had tried to get someone to make me a landing page, and we bought some course off of eBay. Jay did. And we were just trying to build an email list. That's all we were trying to do. Nobody was doing it at the time. And so then I bought a course called the $1 Million Napkin, and that showed me an offer to an order bump to a big ticket. That was kind of the thing. And it was just a bunch of boxes. And, so in the exercise, it said, like, what's the one thing that's working best for you? And I was like, I don't know, my expired mailers, they're working really well, and I was like, and so I had this aha, because this lady named Kathy was getting all my return. I would send 13 postcards to a house. Nobody was using Mojo. Mojo wasn't even in the real estate. I called Mojo as a result of my insurance guy using it. And I asked them, hey, can you work with realtors? There was nobody using Mojo. I think the guy's name was David England. But I ended up going through this. I had this system, like a landing page, a postcard, a phone call system. And I was like, well, I could sell my postcards. Long story short, in digital marketing, I was selling my return to sender mail. So I get all this return to sender mail, and Kathy would dump it in the dumpster. So I took a bunch of the cards out, and there was 13 total. I took 5 out, and I shot a video, and I played with the offer. I went from 1 to 5 to 9, or 1 to 5 to 13. But I ended up, through a Google campaign that I built myself, studying Perry Marshall, I ended up where I could spend $100 on Google and make $300, right? I think the first month that transcended to, like $4,000 being made. And I was like, oh my gosh. Well, me and Jay launched an inner circle. So we built this email list, and we kind of have this thing. We launched this inner circle again. Watched this guy named Frank Kern do an inner circle. And then we just basically mimic his exact video, but do our own version. And we sold 254 people at $97 a month in 24 hours. I mean, we had been building this list. And so now we have 254 people that are paying us $97 a month. We couldn't believe it. When we launched it, we were at a bar at a lake. When we hit send, and we had Blackberries. And they vibrated until they died that night. And I mean, we were just buying people beers and drinks, and, because it was just, this money was coming in. And to be honest, it was the wild, wild west. Our philosophy was, add value, and then make an offer, right? Make a deposit. And so we ran with that for a while, and that turned us into, building a pretty substantial, probably a $250,000 opted in email list. And then we started, one of our thing was proven systems. So we would endorse other brands, and we got sucked into the technology side. And that's probably one of the coolest parts of the whole journey was, going from this whole process of being the marketer to actually then building the technology, and stuff like that.
Yeah, love it, man. Love it. So then, so the digital marketing, when you're talking about the memberships, I mean, this is now, you guys had grown such a successful real estate company. This is, I'm guessing, agents that are wanting to be able to learn from you guys, correct?
Yeah. We built that, and, we were just, again, we were selling real estate, and then everything that we were learning that was working, we were teaching. And then we were giving people the opportunity to learn more with us, whether that was spending 3 days with us in the Winter X Games and having a mastermind, or that was to come to a conference, whether it was one-to-one or one-to-many. We were kind of creating our model. And, that was a fun ride, man. That was because it was, when you're early on something, it's never fun to be late. And so you're talking, this is 2005, 2006, 2007. Then we go through 2008, and, we had to market our way through that. And, we learned a lot, we just learned a lot. And I think we had some of our, we did our first conference in 2008, lost $31,000. Jay's business was going into he was just getting slaughtered. And I reverse engineered a Tony Robbins funnel, which was, I went home. Jay, we stood at the front of the Gaylord, and Jay was like, dude, they said we 31,000. We were arguing about who ordered shrimp, because someone ordered shrimp, and the shrimp was like $5,000, right? We were trying to figure out where we went over. And just so we'd come back 5 years later and lose about 400,000 at that same hotel. But we were figuring it out. And that 31,000, Jay, I told Jay, I was like, man, he had 29 rental properties at the time. He was just, the market where he was really, I wasn't as exposed as he was to the market. And I said, man, just head home. He was in Dallas. I said, just head home. Call me back when you get done, and I'll handle things down here. And about 3 weeks later, I get a phone call, and he said, are you stealing people's credit cards? I was like, no, man. I said, I went into this funnel for Tony Robbins, and I ended up on the phone with the guy, and he was talking to me about my business. And I was like, man, what I did was I recreated that. And I've been talking to these real estate agents about their business, calling them business assessments. And, at the end of them, at the end of these calls, they're wanting coaching. I was like, dude, we could sell hundreds of these. And he got in the car and drove back down to Dallas. And that's how we got into the coaching business.
Yeah, love it, dude. To circle back to your direct mail, I know a lot of our listeners are their ears perked up when you mentioned direct mail and the numbers that you were doing there. What were some of the, and I know this can be tough because there can be a lot that goes into it, but what were if somebody was wanting to get into direct mail, what would be some of your top tips that you learned that really made the difference for you?
Yeah, here's the number one tip. So one day first of all, the number one tip I got was keep your mail. Let's start with that. Dan Kennedy says, collect your mail. So I started, and I had done a day with Dan. Dan's probably one of the most, he's still living, but he's a direct response copywriter. And a lot of top marketers in the digital age have a core fabric of Dan Kennedy. And so I studied Dan and spent a lot of time with Dan. So the first thing I would tell you is go get Dan Kennedy's book on direct mail. He's got 2 or 3 and just read them, because you need to understand what makes it work. Secondly, and then I would go on the limb and just buy every book of the No BS series if you're committed to, because listen, any company that doesn't have customers has a problem, and Dan Kennedy knows how to help people get customers, and they're timeless principles. That's number one. What I ended up doing was, with my direct mail is I collected my mail, and one day I had this magazine in there. I was looking at the magazine, and on the back, there was no postage. And I was like, oh, that's weird. And so I got another, I kept collecting, and I noticed 2 or 3 magazines would have no stamp on them. But I was looking at the magazines because I'm looking at getting the whole back cover. I'm like trying to see if I have that. It was a lot of money. And I was like, man, should I do it? Should I do it? I was like, man, you get the magazine, half the people are going to see it. And so I ended up calling the magazine, and I think it was called Clippers. And there was Clippers, Ad Pages, Advo, and it was Advo. Advo was the largest direct mail company in the country. Long story short, they had this thing that they never sell. The salespeople never sell it, and it's called a detached card. And what it means is, in any magazine that normally would be, they print a little white box where they print on. They don't have to print that white box if they have a D card, which they like their magazine to look better. And what happens is on the card, they'll print the address, and they'll sell the front and the rest of the card, and it'll say this is courtesy of, and the way the mail sends it is it doesn't have to go out the same day as the magazine, but it has to go out the same week. So I was able to get a full bleed postcard in the mailbox, full color, double-sided, with print and postage for 5 cents a house. Game over. That's what I did. So I was literally, once I found that, I was in every single mailbox in my city every single month. What I ended up doing was I layered, because that went out with the magazine, I ended up going to another magazine that dropped at a different time, and I did the postcard with them, and then I ended up getting the back cover of Frisco Style. So if you lived in my city, you got a postcard, And then 2 weeks later, you would see the main magazine. And I just did that for 5 years. And, people said, I'll never forget being in the car with Jay, and I answered it on speaker. And the lady said, I could wallpaper my house with all the shit you send me, Michael Reese, and Jay was like, you're doing good. And I was like, yeah, I mean, that was the truth though, is that I was consistent. I knew the math. I'd spend $5,000, I'd list 9 homes, spend $5,000, list 9 homes, spend $5,000, list 9 homes. And that wasn't including when I listed them, some of those people wanted to buy a home, and when I listed them, some of those homes I double-ended. Right. And so I just knew the math around that. And, Jay Abraham taught me the number one thing I learned was from Jay Abraham, which was you have an unlimited marketing budget. The only budget you have is a testing budget, and your job is to always be testing and increasing that budget. So in my mind, when I started, I had a $200 testing budget. I found something that worked. Once it worked, I got my budget back. If it was working, it got to keep going, right? Then once you get 3 to 5 things working, your goal is to always have a testing budget to try to outperform your lowest performer. And so once you know that your D card's working, your back cover's working, maybe you're doing door hangers, maybe you have expired. I was just drilling oil wells. So, and it was one at a time. I never tried to, and just so you know, I fell in love with finishing. I mean, my thing, when I wrote down the things I hate to not finish. That's what I hate. I mean, if you want to demoralize me, get me excited about something and don't let me drag it across the finish line. Cause I want to get across the finish line. Even if it's longer, like I want to be like, bam, even if it don't sell anything, I like to get like, this is a funnel that I'm building behind me right here. It's called the Freedom Funnel, right? And that funnel puts people in my calendar every single day, right? But literally this morning from 8 to 10, all I did was Woods Davis, a partner of mine, came over and we worked on an aspect of that funnel. We work on it typically every Friday. So every Friday I have Freedom Fridays, and every Friday I work on high leverage activities, usually strategic, like should we do this or should we do that? Should we do this? Those sorts of things. And it's usually always something funnel generated. So we'll go through the funnel. We'll find where the bottleneck is. This is the book, The Goal, that is just, this ain't staged, it's just here. But the book, The Goal, it's mandatory reading by most MBA courses. It's about the theory of constraint. And the theory of constraint is just trying to get throughput. And so when I'm trying to get like my webinar, average registration for my webinar was $20. Now it's $4, right? But I went from scheduled webinars to on-demand just in time, right? And so just understand, and just for the record, if I was selling real estate today, I would be using 5-minute webinars. Absolutely, no question. And so that's the stuff that excites me. I love marketing, man. I love being, and just knowing the power, dude, of you can be anywhere, anywhere in Australia, you can be anywhere. The power of what we have available to us. I just tell people what Jim Rohn says. If you don't have everything you want in your business, it's because you haven't learned something. And the number one thing I say to myself every year is, what skill do I need to learn this year in order to get to where I want? And so I focus in on a skill for the year, and then I duck my head and I don't just read one book, I study the subject. So, I got the boring letters, no BS, marketing to the affluent. If it's marketing and it's very specific, that's right now for me, I would say, probably the one thing that I'm most passionate about is content marketing, but it's not content marketing, and it's how you trigger the consumption with Vitalytics to know if the person was exposed to the offer and get them back into the funnel where they can watch the video where they left off, and using those types of techniques to really move people through. And I mean, I've probably gotten, I don't know, maybe 29 messages from, that one thing this morning of people who are engaging. And so it's like being in a lab and knowing that, like, it's like there's a code to the safe. And once you crack it, it could solve all of your, one funnel can solve almost any problem. If you've ever had a really good funnel where it's just like where you're going to sleep and waking up, going to sleep and waking up, and it's just producing 2 to 5x what you thought was even possible, and you've had that real experience, then the front end work, like when me and Woods are working, when we work, we might work for a month, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, but we know it's $1 million minimum, We like this. I mean, and if you want to get paid like the pros, you gotta practice like the pros, right? And so you got to get in there and put in the work for game day.
I love it, man. So, I guess personal, but also a little bit, I guess, business question at the same time of, I mean, dude, I mean, you everybody can hear and see your passion, and you've been in this game for a long time. And, a lot of people struggle at different times with burnout and whatever that may be. I mean, what has been the key for you throughout this whole journey, even when you're experiencing hardships and so forth, to retain that passion and that energy and that excitement, throughout all these years?
Man, I don't know, man. I mean, I would tell you something, the funny thing is Jay watched the Michael Jordan series and I went over to his house. He wanted me to watch it. And he was like, dude, that reminds me of you. And I was like, reminds me of you? I don't even play basketball. He was like, yeah, but you're competitive. I was like, I'm not competitive. And then him and my wife both had said, no, you're real competitive. I don't really think that. So for the record, I'm unconsciously aware if I'm competitive, and Jay might just tell you I'm full of shit. I don't know. What I would say, and this is the truth, and I believe this, my biggest breakthrough was my biggest personal breakthrough that I feel like I'm most proud of is learning about, and this is going to be quirky on you, but learning about how to have unconditional love and unconditional forgiveness. So I've already been blessed, bro. I mean, I told Jay one day, I was like, dude, how do you tell people what you do? Like I had a person ask me, and when you make, I heard Frank Kern say, let me tell you this. I'm trying to say it in a non-douchey way. Like Frank Kern one day said from stage, you ain't a millionaire unless you got $1 million in the bank, right? Period. And he said it from stage 2009 at the launch at an event. And I remember that. And, it's not about having $1 million or $2 million or 10 million in the bank. To me, that's the score of the value you've created. And so where I said it was going to get quirky is, one day I changed to this philosophy, which is there's a book called Power versus Force, Dr. David Hawkins. It's amazing. There's a book called Surrender Experiment. And I got into this path of more of love and forgiveness and being truly interested in people. Right. And I already learned how to provide, like I learned conceptually, like there's no such thing as money. There's create value, and money was the scorecard. I learned that in 2009. I learned that at that same conference on the top of the Hard Rock Cafe from a guy named Sam Bell. Me and Jay both. We've told the story. That's what happened. But I changed and started thinking like, well, what problems are in the marketplace? Like for real estate agents, let's say you want to grow a real estate brokerage. Well, here's a problem. How do I pass my real estate exam the first time? Create a course. I got a guy in Las Vegas who created a little group, how to pass your real estate exam the first time. And that group grew to 4,000 in 60 days. That's a real problem. You don't have to show someone how to make $1 million. You can just show someone how to pass the real estate exam. NAR said that 80% of all the transactions are going to be done by people who get licensed between now and the next 3 years. So that's point number one. But there's a difference in letting that person come over to your house or go to breakfast with them. And that's where when Jay's was seek the best to be the best and mine was relationships, I changed mine and I go deep with people. And so like for me, I try to add as much value as I can to that person, and I try to be compassionate from where they are and just come from that place. And, it's, and then the surrender where I just trust the process is going to all work out. And I know that sounds weird. Here's what it is. Let me explain. Here, I'm going to get the most money that I've ever made is as a result of me walking away from the most money I've ever made. And so I was watching a Dr. Dre and Jimmy Levine, the Defiant Ones. And they said, and I was watching it thinking I was going to learn something about Dre or see some footage that was going to inspire me. And I ended up not even paying attention to him. I saw this little guy named Jimmy Levine, and he was so fascinating. I didn't even know who he was. And in the show there, everybody's liking Jimmy. And I'm like, damn, I was Googling, trying to find a poster of Jimmy. Couldn't find I wanted Jimmy Levine, like talk about a OG. And I start listening to his story, and the long story short, this one lady says, let me tell you about Jimmy. Jimmy will kick over the sandcastle if he's ever doing the wrong thing. He'll just kick it over. When the music was, she was basically saying when all these music companies were fearing, Apple, Jimmy went to Steve Jobs. And so the reason why Cook bought Beats is because the relationship that was originally created when Steve was still alive. And so when I went on a run, I was doing my first ultra marathon, which was the Bandera. It was a 62-mile race, and I was training for it. And I was on a 14-mile run in Oklahoma on a back, like a country street with just cows and on the side and turtles every once in a while. And I got out there, and I just didn't see me being able. I'm the rookie tackle football coach for my son. I try to coach both teams. I coach both flag teams. I got 3 little boys, and that's the most important thing to me. And when I went to their karate, I had other parents in the room looking at me like I was because I took a phone call like I was crazy. And I just wanted something. I just wanted to redesign what I was building, not based upon the money. I was in meetings all the time, meetings after meetings after meetings. Meetings that made sense at the time, but that I wasn't passionate about. And so I just told Jay, I said, man, I'm done with this. He was like, what? I said, I'm done. Like, what do you mean you're done? I said, dude, I'm done. I said, you can ask him. I said, you can have whatever business. We had several businesses. I said, listen, tomorrow, it's like 7 a.m, I'm there before anybody's at work. I said, dude, all you got to do is go home, write down what you want, and you can have it. He's like, what? And you'd have to get his other side of the story, but he'll confirm that. But that one decision was a spark that made, because we went from about to sign a lease on like 22,000 square feet to moving into flex space. And the little compound, because my life wasn't going in the direction I wanted. And here's the thing. See, what I did was in the book, Power versus Force, there's what they call as the consciousness scale. And the consciousness scale means you have empowering beliefs and disempowering beliefs. But in the consciousness scale, the lowest level of consciousness is shame. People live in shame. Maybe they were, something bad happened to them when they were a little kid. Shame is like the most disempowering consciousness level. Well, on the consciousness level, when you get into empowerment, the very first step of empowerment is courage. And courage is, by definition, when the individual is not a victim, the individual actually can do something about it. Like, this has happened, I can do something about it, and I have the courage to actually act because this isn't happening to me, I'm in control. So when I read Power versus Force and I learned the consciousness and I became aware of my own thoughts and the things that were happening, I didn't want to just go through the motions. I wanted to be more intentional, which is why I read Surrender Experiment, which was go through my heart and surrender that things were going to work out if I just followed my heart and didn't just go, because I'm making money. Our business is doing 10 million a year at this time, 64 employees, right? And I walk in and say, I'm done. And so the point was, right above courage is neutrality. If I said it right, if I pronounced it wrong, that's how it looks when you look at the spelling. And I read it, and it talked about, because I was trying to find out on the scale where I was, because I knew once I had awareness, then I could seek and try to move to the next level, which would be, to become a better version of myself, which is what we're always trying to accomplish, or should be anyway. And so bottom line is that level of the scale happened to be where you would make a decision regardless of the outcome, meaning if the outcome was bad or good for you, regardless, you would still make the right decision. And so that was just playing in the back of my mind. And I could not have awareness on things that were happening and things that decisions I needed to make that were going to be bad for me, meaning I probably wouldn't get a paycheck, right? And so I had to take a couple steps back in order to change the trajectory. And, like I said, now on December 31st, I got one-way tickets to Dorado, Puerto Rico, Ritz-Carlton property. Me and Jay are both relocating there. We're super excited. TASI school system, one of the best Switzerland schools in the world, is there, and in Puerto Rico and in Manhattan. Been there a couple times. Super excited. I moved to Hawaii when I was 7 years old. So I'm excited for my oldest is 9. So I have a 9, 7, and a 4 for them to have that little experience. And, I don't think I would have been able to do that if I wouldn't have made the decision to kick over the sandcastle.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Love that, dude. So then if we, and I've got several follow-up questions for you here. I know we're going long on time here, but, if we fast forward to what you're doing today, man, I know that a big move that you made several years back, which has, been a great move for you guys, was switching to EXP. With that being said, I believe in the bio I read, or somewhere I read, that you have 3,000 agents, is part of that you guys have been able to bring on over there. Walk us through what that looks like today. I mean, like what are the different things that you're involved in today, and what does today look like for your business?
Yeah, man, that's a great question. So we're about 4,000. Jay's about 4,000. I think I'm at like 3,800. Long story short, our original intention, if you look up on there's an old face-to-face, if you put face-to-face Jay Kinder, Michael Reese 2000, you'll see a podcast that me and Jay shot that we wanted to have 2,000 partners nationwide. And this was way before we joined EXP. And so we had from the coaching, we built a coaching and consulting business. And the problem with coaching and consulting is no different than real estate business. Once you train your ISA and they become great, they want to be an agent. Once you train an agent and they become great, they want their own team. And so that's a problem. I don't care who you are. It's a problem. Even if it's not your problem now, there's a potential problem in the future. And the compensation behavioral alignment is not there in the current Frankenstein model, because ultimately I can tell you that I didn't want my best agent to go start their own team, right? And so in theory, if you look at it, there was a lid on their opportunity. And so we weren't aligned. What if there was an opportunity to remove some of those constraints, and there was a business model that allowed me to align? And so when you have just some of those awarenesses of things that are, what if you could build your team to be an incubation place for people where you were incentivized to help them, and in return you would build an exit strategy because of all the good you did in the community, in the real estate community, nationally, globally. And so I had done a lot of good in the real estate community. I just didn't get compensated for it. Just no different than if you bring on an agent, make them a superstar, and they leave, the value exchange is gone. And so me and Jay had always been fascinated, and we have a video. We have it on video from 2005 where Jay Abraham told Jay, hey, if I were you, I would do this versus that, and basically said I'd partner with agents and I wouldn't coach them. But we didn't know how to participate in the transaction. The economics and the technology that was required was real expensive. So we could do it in Texas, which we did successfully, but to go from Texas to Georgia to Portland and Orlando, until you write the check, $100,000 check yourself, and then look up at all the states and all the countries, and then say, well, do I really want to do this? But you see the path, and the path that we saw was, we saw a way for us to invest in real estate agents and not charge them a dime. Versus the only people we worked with up to that point were the people who could pay us. And, even if they paid us good money, there was a limit. It was time. It was a coaching model. So there was like, you're going to get this amount of time, whether that's 2, 3, 4 calls, whatever your model is, you're going to get this amount of time for this amount of money. I can give you more time, but you need to be in a group. Here's a mastermind. Those are the models, right? We'll keep the mastermind small, but the fees got to be high, but you'll still get time. And so, at EXP, then this is just my personal belief, where other people weren't seeing it. A lot of people don't see it. Let's just face it. They don't see it, and that's okay. I'm fortunate that they didn't see it, because the opportunity was great for me to help them see it. And I'm compensated for helping people understand. I'll give you a real life story. Maybe I'm not allowed to tell this. A buddy of mine named Steven, I'll use his first name, in California, came on with me in June. And in July, he hadn't ever had health insurance since he started selling real estate. At EXP, he went ahead and opted in for the health insurance. And at the end of July, he had a sore throat, went into the doctor, found out he had throat cancer. Literally, I got a text from him right now. He has 9, this is what he said. He has 9 doctors who have that are Stanford doctors. He lives in Silicon Valley. This guy does, and Stanford doctors. And he said, Mike, I would not have this level of care if it wasn't for you making that phone call. So keep being an ambassador, because a lot of agents out there, they don't want insurance, but insurance is one of those things is you don't want it until you wish you had it, right? And so those are entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs historically make a lot of bad decisions. They don't know how many people have come to their website. They don't have pixels on their website. They're running their ads for reach instead of conversion or engagement, or they're not running ads at all. They really don't have a business. They have a job. And so they need somebody to help them. The same thing that I needed. But, you want somebody, if you really want somebody to help you, give them a piece of the pie. Or in EXP's case is incentivize them. If you look at Charlie Munger, if you Google Charlie Munger cognitive biases, it's the best video in the world. And Charlie is considered by Warren Buffett to be the number one decision maker on the planet. And Charlie says that when me and Warren go into any business at all, if there is a problem or a success, we usually can distill it down to a core compensation principle, meaning somebody's getting compensated correctly or they're getting compensated wrongly. He said almost every major problem, when you solve compensation, you can solve a lot of business challenges. And the challenge that our industry has is so many agents fail. Well, why is that? Well, I'll tell you why. It's the competition. There is no incentive for me to help the guy down the hall get a listing that I would compete on. But at EXP, I'm helping people from, we're just exploding in Canada. Every single day I talk to somebody, every day I talk to someone in Canada. But the cool thing about talking to them, some of these people I talk to a year later, and they're making more money through some of the additional revenue streams, because EXP, they offer you the ability to make money through leveraging express offers by bringing buyers to the express offer platform, whether it's dividends. They just had an important announcement. I don't know if you heard this, but they just announced about an hour ago that we acquired Success Magazine, which was pretty cool, because I was there last Friday when Glenn, our founder, flew in, and a handful of people had to sign NDAs. But we literally acquired Success Magazine, which is going to be, they were sharing kind of the vision. But when you walked into Success, man, they had issues from the 1800s. And, the core desire there is personal development. If you kind of listen to the announcement of why we're buying it and what the reasons are, I believe that this company's core values is agent centric. And what I mean by that, this is what I mean is they believe the homeowner is not the customer, the agent is their customer. And that if they take care of the agent, then the agent will take care of the customer, right? The better if an agent doesn't have health insurance and they get hurt, or someone in their family gets sick, they're in the middle of a transaction, they're probably not going to do as good of a job for their client, right? So and I believe that authentically. For me, I joined, it was really where I really thought, this is what I thought, I swear to you, because I wrote a book that made $1 million, okay? A book that made $1 million, Inside Sales Predictability. I'm not plugging it. I'm not telling you to go read it. I'm just saying I built a book funnel that made $1 million, and it took like maybe 2 hours of my month. So I had awareness. I'm like over here at meetings after meetings after meetings after meetings. I had affiliate income that was about $100,000 a month. And so I had studied other people, and they looked at their times as like units of time that you should get value from investing, right? You should invest your time and get a ROT, a return on your time. And so what I did was I quantified where I could invest my time. If I invest my time into getting a real estate transaction, that's capped. Even if they send me a referral, my client referral efficiency ratio of 20% of my past clients always, I can quantify it. What I cannot quantify, and this is why I thought I told Jay, the reason I said I feel like if somebody wanted to be a real estate coach, if that was their job, I feel like I could work through them because I've already done it, right? And so I could help them identify their sweet spot, define their passion, build their marketing's job is to put people into sales process. If there was somebody that was super passionate about helping the real estate community, I could help them. If I did it myself, I would be limited because that person's going to need some one-on-one time. And so I'd rather help that person, which I would, instead of helping the soldier, I'd rather help the captain or the general, because by helping them, I'll be able to help more people. I'll create more value in the marketplace. So finding someone and helping them with their book funnel who has demonstrated they have the discipline to get the book done, I would rather help that person, because that person is going to turn around and go sell 10,000, 20,000 books and impact somebody's life. And so when I first joined DXP, I was like, if someone is a coach or they want to be a coach, that was my ideal customer. And I was like, if they call me, I'll lay out the whole game. I'll freaking stay up with them till midnight, 2 a.m. And the reason why is because once I have them established, it's the difference between an oil well producing 10 barrels or 30,000 barrels. That person's going to produce more barrels, and I can provide more value to them and help them solve whatever challenge they're trying to solve. So that was my original intent. Where I got off was when I met Lily, which was a lady working part-time that I knew I could help her. And so I bring on Lily, and in the old model, I would have never helped Lily because Lily never would have paid me $1,297 a month. It would have never happened. But with Lily, what I did was I built a funnel for Lily. Lily turned in 6 contracts 2 weeks ago. I think it's Lily or Des. She lives in Florida. Our Linda Dale in Pennsylvania, right? Our Kayla Mensa, who wrote 11 offers in 45 days, who was the #1 agent on a team out in Nevada, relocated to Dallas. I met her husband at a Stuman conference when Billy, Gene was talking on stage. He said, video the person next to you. I videoed this girl. He says, tell him your occupation. She says, realtor. We get to talking. She comes to EXP. She gets relocated to Dallas with her husband, who starts working for Stuman. And we built her a funnel, and she went from being scared that she couldn't produce a lead to now teaching agents how to build funnels. And for me, that's my passion. And so when I say I read the surrender experiment, I just surrendered to the fact that if I do the things that I'm most passionate about and continue to be a student, like trying to learn and turn around and then try to provide value back to the marketplace, that everything else will take care of itself. And that's just, that's how it's worked. It's just worked that way. And my biggest challenge, and I'll be honest with you, and this is going to be a lot of your listeners' biggest challenge, is their relationship with social media and personal promotion. A lot of people, they have this identity thing that, Ryan Stuman wasn't special. I mean, he is special, but he wasn't. His opportunity was no different than any other person. He just did the work, and was consistent. And I think that can be said, he could have done anything with that time and been that consistent, and been successful, and so, for me, I think what people have to understand is social media is a very, 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 very powerful tool. And I kind of lean towards the method of win the crowd, you win your freedom. Whether that crowd is the homeowners in your market. If I did a survey in your real estate market and said, name 3 local professional service providers that help with real estate, and they don't name you, then, why don't you have a podcast called Dallas Inside Out? Why aren't you, going, what would you need to do, and how would you need to think differently in order to literally be everywhere? And I just believe that there's the balance of, needing to make money now, and there's versus, building something that will pay you forever. And so I lean more towards the content marketing side of things. There's a great book that I will promote because I would have hid it from you, 5 years ago, but it's called Content Inc. It's an unbelievable book. And I think if you can, HubSpot has, I bought 3 HubSpot accounts. I don't remember how much I spent. It was $30,000, $40,000 just in upfront fees. But when you go, HubSpot has free content marketing training. Like, they have a free certification. And I went through it, and I've told people that if I was selling, I could sell that I mean, it's worth it's $1 million. I mean, it's the best training out there, and it's free. And so, people need to ask themselves a different question. They need to ask because there's a book called Change Your Questions, Change Your Life. And so Elon Musk says, always assume you're wrong. And the reason why you want to assume you're wrong is because then you go to learner mode. When you're in learner mode, that's when you find the solution. So when you assume you're wrong versus trying to confirm your biases, it's if you always assume you're wrong and you're out there seeking and you're receiving that information and you're taking action and persisting and having accountability, that's the formula. And I think that anybody can. I don't care who you are. I don't care how bad you've been. I'm not up here to tell you the things that happened to me, but I can tell you that there's been a lot of bad things that happened to a lot of good people. The real thing is you have to be able to ask yourself a different question. If I had a gun to my head, how would I? Right? That's Frank Kern's question. If you Google it, he said, if I had a gun to my head and I had to build a website in 24 hours, how would I get it done? If somebody broke into your house and your most prized possession was going to damage it, hurt it, if the pain was high enough and you had 24 hours, what would you do? And I'll tell you one thing, I would get on YouTube and I would Google how to build a website, because so many people have these stories on, well, I'm not tech savvy and I don't know this and I don't know that. And that's just a bunch of BS. And you got to get control. I know people, I ran 62 miles till my toenails fell off. The guy that ran next to me said he couldn't run 3 miles when I met him, Woods Davis. And 2 years later, he ran ultra marathon. And he said when he first met him, I can't run. I had surgery on both my knees. And so the truth is that just because you think it doesn't make it true, this is all, like 99% of the game is you, you're the CEO of your body, your thoughts. And so what helped me was coming from a place of love and forgiveness, because that helped. I removed, there's a thing called accurate thinking and the laws of success, which was probably another big get for me, because the laws of success say no inaccurate thought, which means always assume positive intent until you have a fact. And until you have that philosophy in your life, you'll see a lot of people depositing things that could sway you emotionally, that aren't factual. But if something happens like, hey, I heard well, I'm going to assume positive intent, right? Always assume positive intent until you have a fact, right? And then so all of that, like that gives you 30% of your rack space back, and just your rack space during the day. Like when people come to you and they bring it, it's almost like, no. We've graduated from that. We don't care about that. Now you might have to lead them and teach them that, so they don't become part of the problem, right? But the truth is that you got to create the rack space to create that space. And the truth is that no matter what you want to do, you can do. And it's never the problem. They say the theory of constraint, right, to the goal. But what my takeaway is, the biggest constraint that you always will have is in your own thinking. It's never the problem. It's how you're thinking about the problem. So if you can think differently, which is what mentors do for us. Mentors, I have students that were successful, but they did it themselves. All I did was a spark that made them think a little different,
Yeah. No, I love that, man. A couple last questions for you. I know we're going long on time, and I know your time is valuable. Dude, I mean, you got a lot going on, man. I mean, you've got multiple different businesses, but you also have a life outside of your businesses. And you mentioned that, you've got your 3 boys and spending that time and investing that time with them and coaching their sports and so forth. How do you keep it all together, man? I mean, what's the key for you? It seems like the most successful people are also the busiest, but also, are able to accomplish the most and get the most done. What are some of those keys for you that allow you to go out there and drive and get things across that goal line in business, but then also not be an absentee father?
Yeah. I think the number one thing that every Monday I spend 4 hours on the plan. So that's it. And that's if you look at my calendar, every single day, non-negotiable, I work out, and then I literally sit in a place. Sometimes a business partner of mine will be there. Sometimes they'll be on a Zoom, and I learned it from building technology, building software, and in building software, you would run sprints. And so what happens is we get to going through the motions, and we just, we just do this week what we did last week and what we did last week. What I do is I get in there every Monday. I'll either throw on a weighted vest and go on a walk with my partner, and we'll walk the 4-mile loop, and we'll be the whole time. And we'll just be throwing up where we're wrong. That's all I do is I assume every Monday, where were we wrong? where are we not leverage? Because there's a few key things. HLAs, high leveraged activities. That's what do I do that produces the most value in the marketplace. The first thing I do in anything I ever do is I identify those things. There's one or two things. What is the HLA? What is the activity that I do that produces the most value in the marketplace? And once I'm on that, I'm on that. I don't get off of that. And then strategically, because strategy is, why or what versus when and how. When and how is tactic, right? So the goal is why are we going to do this? Why are we doing this? Why are we going to do that? Why wouldn't it? Like right now, I'll give you an example. I'm just going to be transparent with you. Right now, I've built an amazing course. I can take a course and turn it into a book. I can turn a book into a book funnel. A book funnel, I can then self-liquidate the client acquisition, scale marketing, and put people in and make sales of this product. So this morning, when I talked to Woods, I was like, hey, we could do this. And when I got done, and he knows this because it's because I'll go here and there, but that's what we're supposed to do. And I say, or we could leverage Levi, which is a guy that works for us, and we could do this, this, and this, and this. Or we can take Jimmy, and these are people that work with me, because I'm looking at my resources. Am I optimizing my resources? Are they working to their highest potential? This is the Jay Abraham in me. If you don't buy any book, buy Getting Everything You Want Out of Everything You Got by Jay Abraham. That's where this comes from. He's a strategic thinker. And so I'm being strategic. And the reason why is Jay Abraham says, are you digging a hole? Should you dig a hole? If you dig a hole, are you going to use a shovel or a spoon? Are you going to dig it over here, over there? And when are you going to stop digging? And should we even dig the hole in the first place? And what he's basically saying is like, stop and think for a minute. Like, so many people don't think. I mean, if you leave your house and go 3 miles this way, and you were supposed to go that way, you got to go 3 more miles to get back where you started. You went 6 miles to get back to square one, to go another 3 miles. Now you went 9 miles to go 3 because you didn't have 2 minutes to check your phone to make sure you were supposed to go left or right. So that's the whole concept of sharpen the axe, right? Like, spend the time doing this versus that. And so that's what I do. And I live that 100% authentically in everything I do, personal, everything. Mondays are my best day. Whether people might regret Mondays, my Mondays are like when I go to bed Sunday night, I wake up on Monday morning, because in my world, we can kick over the whole damn sandcastle every Monday. Every Monday, that's what they were talking about with Jimmy. If Jimmy comes to the conclusion that he's going in the wrong direction, he ain't going to just continue to go in the wrong direction, emotionally tied to going through the motions. And that's why I feel like we were early on the EXPs. We were early on the Commissions Inc. We were early on the Tiger Leads. No one had Tiger Leads. No one had Commissions Inc. Commissions Inc. didn't have 30, 60 days worth of money until they flew into, Dwayne flew into Dallas, looking for some help because they couldn't sell the product, right? It wasn't finished. It wasn't a whole product. And when they did sell the product, the customers weren't happy. And so, he reached out to us early because of our reputation, what we did early with Web Agent Solutions. And being early is not by accident. It's by there's on my wall right there is Rockefeller. The number one book I ever read in my life that changed my life was a book called Mastering the Rockefeller Habits. That's why it's there. And the Rockefeller Habits basically says if you're growing out at a certain rate, then you should be doing strategy either quarterly or monthly. And they have a one-page strategic plan, which I've done these thousands of times, it feels like, with groups of people. And that's my framework. And my framework with Rockefeller Habits was I used to do it every 90 days, but you'll read in the book, when it grows a certain space or speed, you should do it every 30 days. When you're developing software, you can run sprints and do it every week. So I went to weekly, and I used that methodology to build a real estate brokerage really big, really fast. In 10 months, we were doing $500,000 in commissions with 8 agents in 10 months from scratch in a market I hadn't served. 268 transactions, 2.2 million in the first 12 months. And I did that because every single week, when I started, I had no budget. I had no leads. I had no CRM. I had no past clients. I had an agent who just got his license, Chris, who did 52 transactions his first calendar year, Tatum, who never sold more than 18 homes, who did 48 homes his first 12 months with me. But that was strategic. I was dialed in. The shit didn't work day one. but I needed to figure out what wasn't going to work and figure where I was wrong so I could iterate and get back on track fast until I got my first oil well, which was my first client acquisition strategy implemented, where I was putting in a nickel, a dime, or a quarter and getting out $1. And then I needed to go establish the testing budget to do it again. Once I had the systems around one person, I needed to do that with every person. And so I'll give you an example. Most people have teams. I can interview most buyer's agents on most teams and say, what is the agreement? How many leads do you get a month? And there's no damn agreement. There's no agreement. So there's no agreement on how many they get. So there can't be agreement how many they can convert. I mean, there's an expectation, right, on what they should do, but there's no agreement. I did it different because I had looked at so many agents as businesses for so long. I came up with the philosophy that an agent needs to have so many leads because I looked at successful agents and they had a certain amount of leads. Now, did they have skill set training? Yes, you have to be trained, but how many leads does that agent need to have? And, it's like you can't just randomly get in a golf cart and everybody have different amounts of fuel in the golf cart and expect everybody, some on empty, some on full, and everybody be able to get to the destination. And so, little things like that. As I approach my agents differently, I was like, you're going to get this amount of leads a month. This is what's required of you. And in 90 days, if you're not at this metric, we're going to have a meeting. And 90 days after that, you're going to be off the team. And we're going to put you on a PIP plan, which is a personal improvement plan after 90 days. And I didn't feel bad when I let you go because we both agreed on that the day you started, right? Success was extremely clear to you. You knew what you had to do. You knew your revenue generating activities. You knew what was the agreement when you started. And I feel like, that's running a business. Some agents, they just add agents and hope that they hit the number. And when you ask them, there's no real plan there, which is a disservice to the agent because you have agents selling 6 homes, barely surviving on teams where the team's getting a trophy for being the top seller in the whole state. And while there's 15 people who can barely pay their daycare bill, and I wanted to increase my beef with the industry was productivity per agent. I wanted to help agents have a quality life, just like I would want. And I feel like if that's your true intention, then you have to have an economic model for them. And if that's the case, then you got to do the math. And if you do the math and you can have an economic model, it's really easy to know who your talent is and who your talent isn't. And, that's just a little, brief. I don't even know if I answered your question. I think we got on to something that I was passionate about, but that's my little beef. I want to help agents make money. I don't want them just to have a license.
Yeah, no, I love it. Such powerful stuff, man. So Michael, for those that are watching and listening, man, where's the best place for people to reach out if they want to talk with you about EXP or, I know you've got other programs out there and you've got so much great, amazing, even free training out there for real estate agents. And for those watching and listening, at least I'm not with EXP, but I have a lot of friends that are with them anyway, with that being said, from what I've been told, the real key is the people you join with, right? The support that you're going to be able to get and so forth. And it could be so powerful. So Michael, if somebody wants to reach out to you about opportunities there or just learn more about you, continue to follow you, where's the best place to do that, dude?
Yeah, they can either go to they can either call me on my cell phone, which is I've given my cell phone to over 30,000 people. So, and it is my cell phone. It's 972-672-6271. One of my mentors said, if you ain't in over your head, you ain't all in, and I'm all in. So I don't mind if you call me, I'll answer, I'll call you, or I'll text you back. I'm partnering with real estate agents, like a real partner, and those take real conversations. And, I'd be more than delighted to jump on a call and talk about your business, even if if I'm not able to help you. But I do believe that I can help agents that are looking to grow their business, and I can do it without charging them a dime. And I think that I can help them get to where they want to go in half the time. So that's my goal. And yeah, man, I want to say thanks for having me on. I enjoyed it. And I feel like I did all the talking, but I think that was part of the goal. So
yeah, no, it's man, the honor's all mine, dude. I mean, this was such an amazing time, dude, and truly appreciate you taking time out of your busy to be here. I know you're a busy man, and this means a lot to all of us, man. And those watching and listening, as always, we truly appreciate all your support. If you scroll down below, we'll have Michael's cell number. So wherever you're at, wherever you're listening, watching, we'll make sure to have his contact info as well as his website. all of his contact info down there for you to make it easy on you guys. And again, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for all your support. Keep kicking ass, and we will see you next time. Peace. I hope you enjoyed this GSD Mode podcast episode. Now make sure you get shit done and smash that subscribe button now.